Good afternoon, and welcome to another edition of the Rotoworld Basketball Fantasy Q&A. Myself, Raphielle Johnson, joined as always by Noah Rubin. Noah, how's your Tuesday going so far?
Raph, my Tuesday is going well. This week has been good. It's a nice, relaxing,
Yeah,
lighter week for us, which is, I can already see. I can't wipe the smile off my face talking about one game, 2 games per night, which is making our job a little bit easier. But it's also rivalry week for us. We have a lot of
yeah.
beef because it's Hawks Knicks in the in-season tournament tomorrow. So we've been taking it personally, throwing a lot of personal
Yeah.
shots at each other for the past week or so. Just getting ready for Trae Young in New York in a meaningful game. I think hopefully it'll be fun. That's kind of
Yeah.
what I'm hoping for. But yeah, no, the day is good and the week is good as well.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's been one of the benefits of the NBA Cup is to have like these lighter days. Things you'll pick up, Friday, I think you got at least 8 games, maybe up to 10 based on the results of the games Tuesday and Wednesday. So other than that, it's a pretty good week for fantasy managers kind of recalibrate and see where they are, assess their teams, and assess what they may or may not want to do on the trade front, waivers, and all that good stuff.
Definitely.
All right. So without further ado, we're going to get right into the questions here. It's like quite a few of you have already queued up some queries. And Ernest asks 12-team head-to-head 9-cat redraft. He's punting 3-pointers. Needs a scorer with good percentages. Trying to do a 2-for-1 trade while the schedule is light. Looking to move Gafford, Herb Jones, Tobias Harris. Any targets that I can consider?
All right, let's see. I'm gonna try and see if I can. I guess if the percentages doesn't really matter all that much. Let's see.
He's looking for good percentages, but isn't really worried about 3-pointers.
Yeah, I guess that's kind of a center. It seems like, but a lot of the centers that are high scoring, it's kind of difficult. Let's see. Christian Brown is shooting 57% and averages 15.4 points per game. John Collins might actually be a pretty good fit there. 18 points, 53.5% from the floor, 92% from the free throw line. He does hit a 3.5, but it's like obviously it's not like a bad thing that he's hitting threes. Trying to quickly scroll through. I think a lot of the other guys that might fit that, I guess, category of the few categories that you need or don't need, you might not be able to get them with those 3 targets. But I think the other 2, I'm not sure if I would trade. I think I would do like 2 of those guys for the guys I just mentioned. Vooch as well. He's obviously his percentages and scoring have been great, but a lot of his values from threes as well.
Yeah, I don't think I would trade Herb Jones out of those 3, just because you look the Brandon Ingram injury. Don't know when Zion's going to be back. Herb's defensive ability is key on that team. So, if you're already punting one category, I feel like what he brings to the table defensively, you probably don't want to give that up. So I would probably hold on to him. I don't really have like any specific targets. I think Noah's list is pretty good there. But yeah, of the 3 you're looking to move, I think I would be most hesitant to move Herb Jones, given the circumstances down there in New Orleans. All right. Ernest has another question. Also, Keontae George looks better compared to the early part of the season. Is he worth dropping Herb or Gafford for? I don't think I would go that far. I definitely wouldn't drop Herb. Gafford, I think he can be someone that you kind of think about just because of that timeshare, but we've seen him in the past. He's going to give you good value in 22 to 24 minutes. So I don't know if I would trade either one. I would drop either one of those guys. I think, if anything, maybe you try to trade them to get someone of higher value because Keontae's been better, but the overall value still isn't there, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. It is. Keontae George has been better. I think the field goal percentage was a major issue early on, and now he's been able to have enough good games to kind of offset it a little bit recently. So I think he is a guy to try and target and potentially add at this point. Not like a must. Maybe some of the recent numbers make him feel like kind of more of a must-add player, but I don't think it's worth, especially like you said, Herb. not worth dropping. And then
Mhm.
Gafford, probably not. I think Gafford's just obviously far more consistent than Keontae George. But it is definitely worth noting that Keontae George does look better, and it's probably a guy to consider adding.
Daniel, thanks as always for tuning in.
Yeah, thanks,
We're
Daniel.
going to skip ahead.
Nice.
Yeah. Skip ahead to one of his questions right
Yeah,
now.
let's prioritize his questions for sure.
I mean, it just makes sense. It looks like another comment broke it up. So, all right. Dynasty Leagues. Is this the best time to offer Joker for Wemby? 10-team head-to-head, 11 cat, 9 cat plus double doubles and triple doubles.
Yeah, I mean, I don't.
Yeah, I wouldn't do it, but I guess this would be a good time to offer him.
Yeah, I think it. Your team direction really matters here, because if you feel like you can win this year, then I would probably just ride it out with Joker, because he's been incredible. And if the other two categories are double double and triple double, like there aren't many players in the league that are better than him at that. So I wouldn't be looking to move off of him. But if you're kind of evaluating your team like, hey, I don't think I can win this year even with Jokic, then yeah, I would offer Jokic for Wemby. I think Wemby is the number one player in Dynasty and will be for a very long time. So I'd be looking to get him on my team any way possible. So yeah, I think this would be a good time for that.
Yeah. Certainly doesn't hurt to have Jokic coming off of like an insane 2-game heater that he had over the weekend. So
yeah.
It's crazy the line he put up against the Wizards, and they still lost by a comfortable margin. Like,
yeah,
I think that says quite a bit about the rest of that roster right now. Even with Jamal Murray out, like he certainly would have helped had he been on the floor, but you don't expect them to lose to the Washington Wizards.
No, I think Aaron Gordon was out for that game as well. But he's still that's not enough for them to be. But they took it out on the Hawks the next day, so that was fun.
Yeah, Aaron Gordon was also out. So yeah. So 2 starters down.
Yeah.
Okay, but still,
and a Jordan Poole
it's the
heater.
Washington. Yeah,
pool party.
That's true. Mm-hmm. All right. How long will Duncan Robinson stay in the starting lineup? I honestly don't know. Like I'll be honest with you, because I don't have.
We'll get Spo on the phone real quick, and we'll.
Yeah, I don't have any connections down there, but I think his 3-point shooting is certainly a value for this team. I know Bam Adebayo stepped out a bit more, but he still isn't a prolific 3-point shooter. Jimmy Butler isn't either, so neither is Haywood Highsmith. I don't really consider him to be in that class. So it's basically Robinson and Hero. So I don't think he'll be moving from the starting lineup anytime soon, just because they need that spacing.
Yeah, and I think also it's worth noting that this is just rumors, but that Jimmy Butler, like the Heat are open to trading him. There's a couple teams mentioned. So if Jimmy Butler is traded, then potentially there's more minutes for Duncan Robinson, or depending on who they get back, there might be less minutes for Duncan Robinson. I don't think he's going to get included in that trade, because that's 2 massive, massive contracts. But I think it's a situation worth monitoring, because that also doesn't mean that Jimmy Butler is going to get traded anytime soon. This could be rumors, and then he gets traded at the deadline. So he may not get traded at all. We'll see. So I think it's worth noting that things could change quickly.
Agreed. How much time will Scotty Barnes miss? Is Agbaji a must in 12-team 9-cat again, 10-teamers? Certainly didn't look good. You see a guy mouthing, "I can't feel my foot."
Yeah.
That's usually bad. So I don't know how long he'll be out. I would expect an extended absence, given the injury. Agbaji in 12-team, I guess he is. They don't really have too many other options on the wing that would play ahead of him at this point. So 12-teamer, I say he'd be a must. I don't know if I'd go as far as to say 10-teamers, though.
Yeah, I think I agree with that, because he's not, I don't know, a great fantasy player. He's been better than expected this year, but he's not, just going to dominate just because Scotty Barnes is out. So, but I think I just want to throw out another name or two that could also benefit from Scotty Barnes being out. And that's Davion Mitchell as one of them, because Quickly's still out. I think he's supposed to undergo imaging, I think today is what the report was. But there's still no timeline for his return. So if Scotty Barnes ends up missing, whether it be a couple weeks or a lot longer, Davion Mitchell is going to be the primary playmaker again. He had good streaming value early on, just providing assists. And then maybe in deeper leagues, Jonathan Mogbo He was the one who subbed in when Scotty Barnes got hurt. We know he can do a little bit of everything, and I think that he might get more of a chance if Scotty Barnes ends up missing a long period of time again.
What about Jacoby Walter? Maybe he's someone else, but I don't. He hadn't been playing too well, recently. But
I mean, he'll get more of an opportunity. I think he's just iffy to me because it looked really good in their last game, but and then he had another really good start where like his first start, he had 14, 11, 5 assists, 2 steals, 2 threes. Like, yeah, that's great. But I think some of his other starts haven't been consistent. The minutes haven't always been there. So I think he's not a must add to me, but I think he's a guy that you definitely keep an eye on, kind of see how things go. If he gets more minutes or just continues to, like, if this was him having 19 points was kind of a turning point for him, he's kind of figured it out a little bit, then maybe, but I don't think he's a guy that I'm rushing to the waiver wire to add at this point.
Okay, Delvec 19 asks, roster 1, 10 team, 8 cat, no turnovers, Jeremy Sohan or Jaden Ivey?
I think it's Sohan to me. I'm just trying to see how many turnovers Jaden Ivey's averaging, 3.1. So maybe that makes it a little bit closer than it would if it was like a 9-cat league. But I'd still rather have Sohan.
Yeah, I think Sohan's going to give you a bit more in terms of the rebounding and the defensive stats. So that probably puts him ahead of Ivy for me as well. Is Desmond Bane going to continue to be mid all season? I don't believe so. I think he's pretty good at basketball. He's proven to be that type of player. So I don't think he'll be mid all year.
Yeah, I mean, I think he'll be better than he has been the last few games that he's played in. He's already started to kind of pick it up a little bit. I think it's less of a him issue and more of a Memphis rotation issue because he hasn't seen typical starter minutes. I mean, he played 34.4 minutes per game last year. He's down to 28.3 this year. And even before he was injured, it wasn't all that high. So I don't know. Him like as a player and what he does on the floor, I think he'll just continue to get better and get back to being the player we know he was the past couple of years. The only question would be, how much is he going to play? Like, are his minutes going to continue to be limited like this, the same way kind of the rest of the rotation has? Like Jaren Jackson and John Morant haven't seen a ton of minutes this year. So it's more of a Taylor Jenkins thing, I think, than anything.
It feels similar to what we saw with the Warriors to begin the year, where so many guys had kind of earned minutes that they're not willing to pull the plug on any of them just yet. So like you said, that's why the minutes are kind of not as high as you'd expect them to be. But I feel like that's going to pick up as the season progresses. They get closer to playoff time here.
Agreed.
How concerned should managers be about old man Alex Sarr and his ailing back?
I mean, since he's 19 or 20, I'm not too concerned about like the that being just because he's old. But I mean, he's only missed their last 2 games. I think it will just keep an eye on it. But he has a few days off before they play again on Friday. I think that'll probably be a better indication of how severe of an injury this is. It could just be, hey, he's played every game so far. Like, it's bothering him a little bit. We don't want to push it because we're not making the playoffs. We have just picked up our 3rd win of the year. So I'm not too concerned yet.
Yeah. Like, if you see him lying on the floor like Larry Bird did towards the end of his career, then you can be concerned. But I'm not really worried about it right now. Like Noah said, they only have 3 wins. There's no reason for them to push it. So that's probably going to factor into the approach they take to getting him back on the floor. So wouldn't be too worried at all. We touched on the Raptors earlier, but Rizzy McGuire asks, who's a priority ad in Toronto if Scotty is unfortunately out a while? I think we kind of agree that it's Ochai Agbaji of these 2 options here.
Agreed.
Oh, got Pelicans question.
Oh, yeah.
Who's the biggest beneficiary of Zion and Brandon Ingram missing time? Yves Missi, Trey Murphy III, Herb Jones, or another Pelican?
I mean, I think it has to be Trey Murphy because he was back in the starting lineup with both those guys out. And obviously in their last game, 25 points, 6 boards, 5 assists, steal, block, 4 threes. like he's a really good fantasy player that has consistently been limited by playing as a reserve.
Yeah.
Aside from when these guys have consistently missed times over the past couple of years, which has allowed him to kind of put up big numbers. But yeah, I'd say Trey Murphy is the number one guy that is the biggest beneficiary.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I know Eve Misi's season-long fantasy value isn't great, but the fact that he's still at 35% rostered is a bit disappointing for me. Because who else are they going to play at center?
Yeah.
Like Daniel Tice, Carlo Matkovic.
Herb Jones.
Yeah, like I know he's outside of the top 150. I get it, but so there's some situations where you have to look past the ranking and focus more on the situation. And he's been playing better basketball recently too. So I think that's all the more reason to hop on the Eve Misi bandwagon.
Agreed.
The hold lively of PJ Washington rest of the season and 10-team 8-cat. Can't really call for rest of the season, be honest with you, just because so much can change. But I think I would prefer to hold lively of these two, just because of the defensive potential that he brings to the table.
Yeah, I think it's kind of close. It could be more of a what position do you already have a lot of. I may lean Washington just because he's not in as much of a minute split, and I feel a little bit safer about that. But I mean, I don't think I would be looking to drop either guy. So it's just kind of a toss up to me. I'll lean PJ Washington, but Raphielle lively, and that's totally fine. So
Yeah. I don't think there's necessarily a right answer here.
Yeah, agreed.
We're not comparing, say, Ivica Zubac and Boban. You know, it's like two different,
Right.
That's fine. All right. Do you like Julian Champagny and Jeremy Sohan's value the rest of the season and potentially long term in shallow category leagues?
I like Sohan rest of the year.
Yeah.
I'm not as big on Champagny just because I assume that at some point Devin Vassell is going to move back into the starting lineup and see a lot more minutes because he's played 24 minutes per game to this point, but that'll probably be closer to 32, if not more. But they've just been easing him back in, which is what they always do with him. So eventually Champagny will be bumped out of the starting lineup, I assume, even though they've been loving starting him. But I think at some point he'll get bumped out. So I feel much better about Sohan.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I don't really have too much to add. I think it's like similar line of thinking here. Like eventually you have to assume Champagny will be moved to the bench because you've got Sohan and Devin Vassell in reserve roles. I don't think that's going to last. And even if it did last, I think their minutes will be at a point where Champagny's probably the one who's going to take the most significant hit. So,
agreed.
All right, 12-team 9-cat. Who do I drop once Cam Thomas comes back? Valanciunas, Capella, LeVert, or Sohan, and he's punting free throw percentage because Ivica Zubac is killing him. Sorry. I think I dropped Karras out of those four, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I don't think it's Sohan or Capella.
Yeah.
I guess it is between Valanciunas and Karis LeVert, but yeah, I think it would be LeVert, especially as of right now, just because Sarr has been out. Valanciunas has started the last 2 games for the last 5 and put up really good numbers. I don't think I'd be looking to drop him right now, but I think it probably would be LeVert.
Yeah, I think his value is kind of capped as long as Mitchell and Garland are healthy. So, yeah, he'd be my pick for that reason. Brian, thanks for tuning in. It's 10-team 9-cat head-to-head. Should he drop Jared McCain and pick up Ayo Dosunmu? Now, that's an interesting question.
I think so. That stinks. And Jared McCain was so good to start the year, and now he's not a big part of the team's rotation now. He's part of the team's rotation, but obviously his role looks very different with Joel Embiid and Paul George healthy, and Tyrese Maxey obviously back as well. So I think I would. Dosunmu's been really good in the starting lineup. Maybe it's better to try and trade Jared McCain off because I think he probably still has some name value there.
Yeah.
But I think as far as would I do that, I would.
Yeah, McCain played 28 minutes on Sunday, so he's still getting opportunities. But when you have Embiid, you got Paul George, you got Tyrese Maxey, you're looking at a guy who's no higher than fourth in the pecking order offensively. Meanwhile, Dosunmu may be in a similar spot, but he played 35 minutes. He's going to play probably low to mid 30s every night until Patrick Williams returns, and we don't know when that's going to be. So I think Noah hit it on the head here. I'd look to trade him before I would drop him, but if you can get Io, I think I would go ahead and do that if you can't trade McCain before doing that. Also, do you guys think Max Strus returns top 100 value the rest of the season? I guess it's certainly possible, but I don't.
Yeah, I'm trying to look at his last year's numbers too, just to kind of see. It was 122 last year, and I remember last year feeling like a really, really good year for him.
Yeah.
His first in Cleveland, the rebounds and assists obviously went up. I remember that now, but I don't think if we're just looking at 9 cat value strictly that top 100 is attainable for him, because I think it would have to be an incredibly hot shooting year that like better than he ever has. So yeah, no, I wouldn't say top 100. I think he is a guy that's worth rostering though.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd go as high as top 100, but he'll certainly help, especially if you're in a category league and you need help in 3-pointers. So playing in that offense would certainly benefit him and help him hit the ground running once he returns. All right. Hey guys, thoughts on Robert Williams III and Malcolm Brogdon the rest of the season in 12-team 9-cat head-to-head? Stash or drop? I think with both, you're kind of waiting for a trade because, they're in situations where you kind of feel like something's going to happen just to free up minutes for younger players. Donovan Clingan up in Portland in terms of the Time Lord, and then Bub Carrington, Keyshawn George, those guys in Washington with regard to Brogdon. So I think Williams would have a higher ceiling in terms of a trade because of what he can bring defensively. But on the flip side, the health is the biggest concern with him. So I don't know if I would be necessarily stashing either one of them expecting a major return if they're to be moved in February or before then.
Yeah, I think this is kind of a tough situation like to truly evaluate as a fantasy manager, just because they both can be very good fantasy players, but they're not in the best situations for it, and they're consistently hurt. But also moving to a winning team at the deadline is very possible, but that doesn't mean they're going to play enough to really be worth rostering. I think if I had to choose between the two, I'd prefer Robert Williams, but I think they're both just going to be headaches to try and roster.
Yeah. Any intel on Clowney remaining bench versus the Bucks despite the healthy tech? No.
Yeah, I don't have any, but
yeah,
I think
it's clearly yeah. Go ahead.
You go ahead.
I was going to say.
I think that he just hasn't been a big part of their rotation.
Yeah.
Even when he is healthy, like he's played like a smaller role off the bench, but I think maybe it's just like I don't know. Day'Ron Sharpe had been playing pretty well. I'm trying to quickly pull up their last game just to kind of look to see what the minutes look like who was getting the minutes. But yeah, I think he's just not a guy that we can rely on this year. I think he is a dynasty guy or potentially a silly season guy.
Yeah, because Day'Ron Sharpe only played 11 minutes on Sunday, and Nick Claxton got 33. And there's really no reason for them to pull the plug on Claxton. Like, he's clearly a cornerstone based on the contract they gave him. So he's going to play good minutes. You're just kind of holding out hope that they will consider playing Clowney and Claxton together in part of rotation. That would be like his best chance for fantasy relevance. So I don't have the intel, but it's certainly something to keep an eye on. Maybe I'd expect things to improve later in the season if this team falls out of playoff contention like many expect them to. 12-team 9-cat head-to-head. My worst players are Bob Carrington, Vasa Micic, Jonathan Isaac, and Precious Achua. In what order should I stream in keepers the rest of the season?
I think for the streamers, Micic is the priority streamer.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as who should be kept rest of the season, I feel like Bub is the priority. But I mean, yeah, the other guys are just fringe roster guys that may have some value at times, but probably aren't great long term.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I'd love to say Jonathan Isaac, but he just can't stay healthy, unfortunately. So you can't really consider him like a keeper rest of the season. Precious, like he's clearly past Jericho Sims in a rotation, but that's not saying a whole lot given the center position in New York. So he wouldn't be a keeper for me. Like Micic, like Noah said, with LaMelo out, he's going to be a guy that you have to have rostered right now. So, yeah, I'd agree with that. And he has another question. Brandon Miller or Jaylen Brown, 12-team 9-cat head-to-head. Who do you guys prefer?
I think it might be Miller. I think I don't know if I'm just leaning too hard into his inflated stats with LaMelo and Miles Bridges out, but he's been awesome, and he's actually kind of been shooting the ball better a little bit recently than he has over the course of the season because it was kind of a slow start for him. So I think I would lean Brandon Miller. Definitely the upside is more so there for him. Jaylen Brown might be a slightly safer option, I feel like.
Yeah. In fantasy basketball, I prefer Brandon Miller. If I actually want to win a basketball game, I'm going to take Jaylen Brown.
Fair.
All right. Chad is here. What's up, Chad? Who is the best guard for fantasy in the NBA currently, and why is it Dyson Daniels?
Because he is the best guard in the NBA for fantasy.
All right. I'll save my comments until after tomorrow's game.
Yeah, you don't want him hearing this and getting mad and taking it out on the Knicks.
That's exactly it. Head-to-head categories: Terry Rozier or Ochai Agbaji. Scotty Barnes is out.
I feel like Agbaji is going to get the nice boost with Scotty Barnes up. We don't have a timeline on that yet. I don't think, unless something's come out like since we started this. But Rozier has not been good at all this year. I think that if Jimmy Butler ends up getting moved, that there is a chance that he sees just a bump in usage, moves back into being a full-time starter, but that's not guaranteed. Gosh, Rozier's just such a hard guy to just like drop just because we know how good he can be.
Yeah.
But I think it might be Agbaji.
Yeah, I think in the short term, I'd go with him. Barnes is apparently doubtful for Thursday. So that's no surprise there. But it's just a matter of how much time he's going to miss instead of just that one game.
Yeah.
All right. Serious question. I have Karras and Strus. Will this be Monk and Herter, where I basically have to guess who's going to have the better game of the timeshare ever game? I don't really see it as a similar situation. I think Monk is like clearly superior to Kevin Herter when it comes to fantasy value. So, yeah.
I think also just like when it was where Herter was a starter and Monk was coming off the bench, like we knew that Monk was better, and like if Herter was playing well, he would get minutes, but if he wasn't playing great, then like sometimes his minutes would be lowered, and that could be Keon Ellis stepping up or whatever. But with Strus coming back, I don't think like he's not moving Karis LeVert back to the bench. Like LeVert's already been in his bench role. I think the guys that'll take more of a hit are Isaac Okoro or Dean Wade or Sam Merrill, players like that. And that Strus, maybe they bring him off the bench for the first game back or something like that. I don't know. But eventually Strus will be back in his starting spot and will be, a good fantasy option that probably hurts your field goal percentage. But I don't think it's going to take away too much from Karis LeVert. But he's not Malik Monk.
Mm-hmm. True. Pick up Goga and drop Lively. Thoughts?
I don't feel great about that.
I can see why in the short term.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know if I'll feel as good about that once Paolo Banchero returns. And I don't know how soon that'll be, but I think we're coming up at approximately his reevaluation point pretty soon here. So yeah, I don't think I would no.
Yeah, I think there is a chance that Goga still starts when Paolo's back and they bring Wendell Carter off the bench.
Right.
But like that's not guaranteed because I mean I thought that Goga was going to move back to the bench when Wendell was back, but they both started together. So like I think that even if Goga stays in the starting lineup though, they're still going to need to give enough minutes to Mo Wagner and Wendell Carter. So I think his minutes still might take a hit. So he might start and play 18, 20 minutes per game, or he might move to the bench. So I feel like Lively is a safer option, even if Goga has been really good so far. But maybe that's a good opportunity to sell high on Goga at this point.
How concerned should I be about Al Horford's production with Porzingis back? I'm assuming it's trade or hold. I mean, I wasn't really expecting too much from Horford to begin with, just because he won't be playing both ends of back-to-backs, and he's technically their sixth starter. Like if somebody's out, then he'll start, but if not, he's coming off the bench, which really limits his value. So I don't know. I'm not concerned just so I didn't expect too much out of him from a fantasy standpoint, but
yeah, I think just the way the schedule has gone recently, Horford's still been able to get a handful of starts just because they've had multiple back-to-backs over the last couple of weeks. So in the one game that he came off the bench, 2 points, a rebound, and 3 assists in 26 minutes isn't great. He should be more productive than that across 26 minutes if that's what he's getting. So maybe I wouldn't be like fully out on him, but like you said, like my expectations were that he was going to be really good until Porzingis came back, and then after that, we'll see. And it might just be like a borderline rosterable player, but not a definitely rosterable player. So we'll probably need a few more games of them playing together to truly evaluate it.
Dynasty 10 cat punting points and assists. Would you trade Darius Garland and Malik Monk for OG Anunoby and Cason Wallace?
Dude, it's Dynasty too. I was like, redraft, like definitely. I think Dynasty, even if you're punting those categories, that's tough because maybe it's not as bad if you're punting those categories and you think it gives you a chance to win a championship this year. But I think Garland is a top 30 Dynasty player, and the rest of the guys are a couple of tiers below at best. And he's just a hard player for me to move just for it to fit my build better, if that makes sense. Because you can always change your build.
Yep. I'd agree with that. And what I'd also say in terms of Dynasty, OG Anunoby hasn't passed 70 games since his rookie year. And then since his third year, he's gone over 65 once. So I think that has to enter the equation when evaluating this. So I don't think I would make that trade because I really like Garland from a fantasy standpoint as well. Then you think about the centerpiece of the other side. You have to consider his availability or lack thereof for his career thus far. Should managers continue riding the Brook Lopez roller coaster? Good name there. Or try selling next time he strings together big games. I think I would try to sell. I think he's been really good, throughout the course of like the season long value where he winds up. But got Middleton back. Eventually, he's going to be close to taking on his usual workload. Obviously, Giannis and Dame as well. So offensively, you're looking at a guy who's pretty much a similar role in terms of what he'll do, but I think the opportunities may not be as plentiful with all three of those guys at full go.
Yeah, just looking at his last few games, I didn't realize how annoyingly bad it had been because he is a guy that can definitely pour in blocks and threes, but last game he had neither a three nor a block, hit 1 3,
Yeah.
no blocks. The game before that has scored less than 5 points or less 4 straight games. So I think he is a guy that I'd be looking to sell high, like you said. I mean, it's a lot of fun when he's getting you 3+ threes and 3+ blocks in the same game, but it it doesn't come in like every single night. It's not super consistent. And he is kind of an older player, so I guess and like how much of that is a factor as well. Like how much are they going to manage his minutes and games moving forward? We'll see. But I think also just the main factor, like you said, is with Chris Middleton back, like he kind of moves down the pecking order in terms of shots. So if he isn't blocking shots, which he hasn't the last 2 games, then it makes him a difficult player to justify rostering. So,
All right. 10 team, 9 cat head to head. Buddy Hield or Clay Thompson? I can't believe I'm going to say this, but I think I would go Buddy Hield right now. No, there's a little bit of recency bias there, but I don't know. I don't know about Clay's fit in Dallas. You would think playing off of Kyrie and Luka, the catch and shoot opportunities would be enough to make him a really good fantasy option, but just hasn't clicked consistently yet. And I feel like Buddy Hield may be starting to separate himself from some of those other guards in the Golden State rotation.
yeah, I think either way, you're going to get inconsistent, streaky threes, and then occasionally, or maybe not even occasionally, more often than not, going to get some really bad shooting nights, which has kind of been the case for both of them recently. They're both coming off 20-point plus games with a bunch of threes. So I might go Clay just because I feel safer about him getting the minutes, even if I mean, Buddy before this last game really hadn't been doing much in recent weeks since his really hot start. And I feel like there's more of a obligation for Dallas to make things work with Clay than there is for the Warriors with Buddy Hield. So I might lean Clay, but I don't love having either of them on my team.
Should I be concerned with Sabonis and his production? Fewer assists. He fits my team very well with Giannis, LeBron, Gobert, and others, but I feel like there's something off. I really wouldn't be. I know the assists have been down, but I wouldn't be too concerned at all, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I mean, the assists are down slightly. It's not like a huge drop off from last year. And I think more so recently, it just hasn't been great. Having Malik Monk in the lineup changes things a little bit because he's done a little bit more playmaking than I think he has in the past. DeMar obviously needs the ball a little bit more than Harrison Barnes did last year. So those are factors, but it's a slight drop in assists, but it's nothing to be concerned about. I mean, I'm sure at some point it'll go back up for a little bit and then probably, kind of get back down to what it is right now. So it's, just it might just be what it is, but he has been better in other categories, which has been very helpful.
Yeah. Does Wendell Carter Jr. need more time to realize value, or will he disappoint managers this season like he has in the past?
I don't feel good about him being really good when I mean when he gets healthy, or like, I mean, he is back and healthy. He's starting at power forward, which isn't his ideal spot, but I think it is kind of dependent on when Paolo gets back or when they get healthier, and maybe when Franz is back too, that Goga goes to the bench and not Wendell, which could happen. But even then, like, I just don't feel great about him. I don't think he's like a must roster player. So I would definitely lean towards he's going to be a disappointing player in fantasy this year.
Yeah. I viewed him as like a late round player in terms of standard league value. If you get that, I think you should probably be pleased with it, but that may even be a stretch, given some of the other guys in that rotation. So, yeah. Maybe he gets a slight bump with both Banchero and Wagner out, but I'm not betting on it.
No.
All right. Koulibaly got dropped in my 10-team 9-cat head-to-head redraft league. Should I grab him?
I'd say yeah. I think
10
team makes it a little bit less of a, drop what you're doing, definitely go get him, because it might be like the shallower rosters definitely impact things. But he had a shaky offensive stretch. He had 17 points in the last game, so hopefully that's kind of a sign of things getting back on track. But the defensive numbers have still been there pretty consistently. The assists have been solid. The rebounds have been solid. So if the shot is back and the scoring is back, then yeah, I don't think he's a guy that should be on the waiver wire.
Yeah, if you can afford to take the hit in field goal percentage, then by all means, go ahead and do it. Do you think the Lakers will start resting LeBron James or Anthony Davis more and more as the season progresses? I'm going to say no. I think, as we mentioned in the open, this week's schedule kind of leaned towards that, having extra time off. That may have factored in LeBron not playing on Sunday because, you get him time off until Friday, maybe help heal up the foot and whatever else may be ailing him. So I don't expect the schedule to set up like this anytime soon. And plus, the West is an absolute beast this year. So I don't think the Lakers can afford to rest these guys much more than they already have.
Yeah, that was going to be my point exactly, is that they just can't afford to. If they could, then they would have already. They aren't winning games with him and AD playing. Like if they're not playing, then this team isn't really good enough for them to make the playoffs while not playing these guys as much as possible. So I don't expect there to be a ton of games where they're not playing, barring an injury.
Yeah. Head-to-head 9-cat rest of the season. Who should I keep? Messi, Sarr, or Edie. Currently, I have Messi rostered. Sarr and Edie on my IL.
Yeah, I think choosing one, it would be Messi.
Yeah.
And I think if you just leave the other two on the IL as long as you can. I think I actually want to rank it like Messi, Sarr, Edie, just because Edie wasn't even starting when he was last healthy. Yeah, I think Messi is the priority, though.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Okay. Will Julius Randle eventually lose favor if he continues his signature style of losing gameplay? I think that's a bit harsh. He won in New York, but they do need to figure out the whole hold the ball for like 3-4 seconds and assess things instead of just keeping it moving. But who are they going to put in there for him? That's the question. Like maybe if there's I don't know if he's eligible to be traded or anything like that, but maybe that would be on the board. But I kind of feel like it's in everyone's best interest to try to make this work out. See if they can make it work out, I should say.
Yeah, I agree with that. I don't think that they would. I mean, maybe he would lose out on a couple minutes if they really feel that strongly about it and give Naz Reid more or Jaden McDaniels at the 4 more.
Okay.
But I don't see that happening just because, if you gave up Karl Anthony Towns to bring in Randall and Dante DiVincenzo, and then you're not happy with how either of them are playing, then what were you doing? Like that just makes the trade look so much worse. But Cat already playing as well as he is makes the trade look bad. So I think a little bit of almost like a sense of pride, or just being a little, I don't know, not wanting to admit that they may have lost the trade. A little stubborn, I guess, is probably a good word for it. I don't think he'll lose out on minutes. I just don't think they can afford to.
Yeah, I blanked out and did not remember Naz Reid, but I think you got Randall, you got Naz Reid. It's not like they're going to put Josh Minot in a rotation.
Right.
So I know Leonard Miller had a big game in the G League the other night, but he's not going to be in the mix either. So it's like they're just going to have to try to figure this thing out. Right. And Daniel's question: pick one for short-term value: T.J. McConnell or Vasa Micic. McConnell looked really good on Sunday.
Oh,
It's like
it
Brandon
might
Miller
be
versus T.J. McConnell shootout on Sunday. That was kind of fun, but
crazy. But yeah, I think it might be McConnell. I
yeah,
think Micic has been good in place of LaMelo, but I think what McConnell has been doing is significantly better than anything Micic can do.
yeah, yeah. Plus, Andrew Nemhard's been banged up pretty much all year, so
True.
that's another reason to kind of lean McConnell on this spot. Yeah. And Daniel, thanks as always for tuning in. I always appreciate your questions, and good luck to you the rest of this week as well. All right. Where will Jimmy Butler end up, and will Jaime Jaquez Jr. be worth the pickup? Is he worth picking up now? I don't even know if they'll be able to move Jimmy Butler, to be honest with you. In terms of the salary and what they probably want back in return, I don't think there are too many options out there um, in terms of financial ramifications and also fit. And he's going to be a free agent this summer too. So, yeah.
I think the okay, so this is from the Shams Charania's report that the teams that Butler was open to playing for, which doesn't mean that the Heat have to honor that. And if I was a betting man, I would say that Pat Riley is going to do his best to not honor that, and just be a little petty there. But it could. But the three teams are the Mavs, the Rockets, and the Warriors. And I would assume that especially for Dallas or Golden State, or excuse me, if Houston or Golden State, they'd be packaging 2 or 3 young guys and picks to make this happen. So that's less minutes for Jaime Jaquez. So I don't think he would necessarily be worth a pickup. Dallas, I don't know exactly what their offer would be, just because I feel like they have less prospects that would like excite the Heat. But I'm not sure that this is a good trade for the guys left behind in Miami, just because they're probably going to be bringing in multiple players to soak up minutes.
Yeah, I think Jimmy Butler will wind up where he usually is, out on Calle Ocho playing dominoes with the locals and then playing the game. So I don't really think he's going to be moving personally. All right. Head-to-head 10-team points league, considering trading Tyler Hero for Kristaps Porzingis and DeAndre Ayton, but a bit sketched. Thoughts?
I don't think I like that. Like, one, I prefer if I'm doing trades to be the one getting the one in the 2-for-1, getting the best player. But obviously that doesn't always happen, always doesn't make sense. But I feel like between Porzingis definitely not playing back-to-backs, Boston having no reason to push him during the regular season, and DeAndre Ayton just being DeAndre Ayton, and what was Chauncey Billups said that he didn't want to play him because played 2 minutes in the second half because
he didn't. His spirit wasn't in it.
I'm like, that's
bro.
The story of DeAndre Ayton, though.
Yeah,
that's the story of DeAndre Ayton. So it's like, if I'm having to worry about his spirit for basketball as while playing fantasy, that's ridiculous. I'd rather take Tyler Hero, who's playing awesome.
Yeah, I'm not making that move just because there's so many variables at play here. Does Ayton feel like playing? Porzingis, the schedule. Miami's in a spot where they're just going to have to let Hero just go out and cook. So I would not move Tyler Hero in this trade. That's right. Next. Gonna put that up there. But yeah, I expect a fun game tomorrow night.
Hopefully.
Obviously, like you mentioned earlier, Trae Young at the Garden. That's always must-see TV. I think for any star player to visit, to play on that stage is always big. Dyson Daniels, the way he's played this year. I think my one question would be Jalen Johnson. He missed the last game with a shoulder injury.
Yeah.
Will he be available? How effective will he be if he is? I think that's going to be one question. Knicks are a bit banged up too. Jalen Brunson tweaked his ankle, came back in last night, but between he and Towns, he got some lower body injuries that you're kind of concerned about. going into a game of this magnitude. But I think it should be a good game.
Yeah, I agree. I think my one hope as a Hawks fan is that Trae Young doesn't just have an abysmal shooting night, which sometimes he tends to do that. Like if he'll sometimes start off first quarter like 1 of 6 shooting with 4 turnovers in the first quarter, and then he'll pick it up as the game goes on. But I think that's what'll make the game go from like a good game to a truly like great entertaining game is because I mean it is going to be entertaining regardless, because if Trae Young isn't playing well, the fans are going to let him know, and it's going to be very funny. But if he is playing well, then there's a little bit of the showmanship there that should make it a little bit entertaining, and hopefully the in-season tournament, like the stakes of that are amplified a little bit. So we'll see. I think Jalen Johnson's health is a big factor as well, but I mean, we'll see. I'm excited.
The Knicks have gotten off the slow starts recently too. So, if Trae Young does come in, start the game on a bit of a heater, that can be a lot to overcome. He obviously overcame a slow start last night, but with all due respect to the Toronto Raptors, they don't have a player on par with Trae Young. I know Scotty Barnes could be that type of player talent-wise, but pure shooting and scoring ability, if Trey's on one of those 35, 40-point heaters that he can get on, you're in deep trouble if you start off slow. So,
no.
Let's see. Tonight we've got Orlando, Milwaukee, and then Dallas, Oklahoma City. Orlando, I just think they're too banged up right now.
Yeah.
I think they'll compete, but I just don't see them going into Milwaukee and winning that game with the injuries.
Agreed.
And Dallas, Oklahoma City could be fun too.
Should be. We'll see. I mean, it's I guess it's a Western Conference semifinals rematch, so that's kind of exciting as well. And 2 stacked teams. I wish Chet was healthy to make it just a little bit more exciting, but the Thunder have been incredibly competitive regardless. So, yeah, that should be a fun one. A lot of stars in that game.
And the last one on Wednesday, Golden State, Houston. I'm expecting a few double technicals in this one, I think. You got Dylan Brooks and Draymond Green, obviously. Houston, the two teams don't seem to like each other too much in terms of the recent competitiveness. So hopefully Tari Eason's back, though.
Well, I was going to say, I think Tari Eason has been pretty vocal about not liking the Warriors either. So it definitely has potential to be an incredibly, I guess, dramatic, eventful game is probably a good way to put it. But yeah, I think it's a lot of good matchups. It stinks that Paolo and Franz are hurt just in general, but also just for the fact that they're not going to be able to play in this game, because I think it would be some pretty good matchups in a high stakes environment.
Yeah, he kind of owes them one too. He had some things to say last year and then couldn't play because he was injured. So hopefully he's back out there for that reason alone, just to potentially back up his words.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Well, we're actually going to wrap this up a couple minutes early. There aren't any more questions in the queue. So without further ado, as always, thank you guys for tuning in. Thanks for Noah coming on again. Tomorrow we got the Rotoworld basketball show with ourselves and Dan Titus, Yahoo Sports. That starts at 2 p.m. Eastern. Hope you guys join us then. Take care.